So, true confessions. I'm going to ask a question. You don't have to answer if you don't want to, but by a show of hands, how many of you are willing to admit that when you were a teenager, you did something that maybe wasn't legal, could be a crime? Am I surprised at all the faculty? Yeah. So this is a common response. It's one of the first questions I ask on the first day of class. And it's a common response. Why do we need a class that talks about this? Well, I'll throw out a few numbers for you. Almost 90,000 youth live in detention facilities or other residential public or private facilities at a cost of about $250 per day per person. If you're African American and under 21, you constitute about 16% of our population. However, that also constitutes about 30% of the referrals to juvenile court. 38% of the juveniles in residential placement, remember we're talking about 16% of the population, and 58% who get sent to the adult prison system. It's well known that contact with the juvenile justice system leads to really bad outcomes, as you can imagine. Mental health, low educational achievement, homelessness, continued immersion in the criminal justice system, and so on. Just the list goes on and on. So we live in a throwaway society, and our society doesn't hesitate to throw away children. We lock them up, they do something wrong, we lock them up, we throw away the key. Social Work 6535 looks at that issue from a social work perspective, and we ask some key questions, such as, how do you hold youth accountable for their actions without just locking them up and throwing away the key? And how do we balance what they need with what society needs? How do we keep society safe and still promote the best that we can out of our children? What do we need to understand about teenagers and their developmental processes that will help us figure out the best way to deal with different kinds of behavior? Does the juvenile justice system as it currently exists harm or help juveniles? Does it keep us safer? And what is the ethical responsibility to these children? Is it okay to simply put them inside a detention facility or send them into the adult system and once we do that, we don't have to think about them anymore? We have lots of in-class discussions about this. People come into my class at various points along the continuum in terms of understanding what the juvenile justice system is all about and understanding the kids that are in it. We use case studies in class. We use videos. We have lots of small group discussions. We wrestle with really hard questions. And the key assignments involve interviewing somebody working in the field, in the system, and doing a reflection on that based on what you learn in the class. And also, you get to, if you're anybody who's interested in grant writing, we do a paper that's in the format of a grant proposal based on evidence-based practices, which we also talk a lot about. So students typically get a lot out of the class, and it's not just because of my wonderful teaching skills, it's because the content is really critical. And if you're going to be working in social work profession as a clinician or in macro or community settings, and you're going to be working with children and families, there's a really, really good chance that you're going to brush up against the juvenile justice system and some of these kids who are in it. And if you think that's where you might be headed or you just have a sideline interest in it, I encourage you to take this class because we really try to do a deep dive into what these kids go through and what we as social workers have a responsibility to do with them and for them.